In this session we're going to talk about the design of a training program, and in particular we're going to look at the design of the training program, which will be centered around trying to achieve certain outcomes. It'll be built on the ADDIE model, and just to bring it back to mind, the ADDIE model was analysis, design, development, implementation and evaluation. And these 5 steps are what are generally recognized, certainly within this scheme, as the necessary steps in the development and delivery of an effective training program. So trainers should have this type of model in their mind when designing and setting out a training program. So it's the analysis, the design, the development, implementation and evaluation. And as I said, in this session we're going to talk about the design part. Now, to design an innovative training program takes time. It takes time and it takes a lot of consideration. It needs to meet a set of learning and training goals. So there must be clarity on the part of the trainer in what is required from the program. The trainer must know what the outcomes are or should be. So before the program is designed, it's important that the trainer has a clear set of objectives. What is the trainer trying to achieve from the program? So it's only when these have been agreed that design can start to take place. The design phase is mostly based on decision making. It's trying to decide what should be in the program, what's not in the program, and how the program should be delivered. It includes lots of other parts as well. For example, assessment of the program, the effectiveness of the program, and so on. But essentially, at this stage, we're talking about what should be in the program and how it should be delivered. The following main activities should take place. Trainers should decide what trainees will learn and how the skills and knowledge will transfer to the job. So within a company, the trainers should decide what the trainees need to know. What's the purpose of the training scheme? And then what and how the outcomes and how they can be transferred to the working situation. So it's what are the outcomes, the desirable outcomes, and how can they be transferred into practice? How can they be implemented? So it's important for the trainer to have some grasp on what's required and also how it can be transferred into a usable working practice. The trainers should develop a set of learning objectives which will center around the whole learning process. The whole learning process is important. The course will perhaps be a one-day course, or it could be 1 day per week over a certain period of time, or whatever the company decides. But the trainers must have some set objectives, learning objectives, which will cover the entire course. And it means that there is then efficiency in the delivery of the course, that the knowledge that is required is being delivered. The skills that are required are being delivered. So that there is a focus in the whole activity, the focus onto what is required from the course. So the trainers are focusing in precisely on what is required. So the trainers should decide what will be taught and what methods are most appropriate for the effective delivery of the teaching content. So once the trainers know what is required, perhaps the managers in the company have said they wish that their employees, their workers had certain skills, let's say that's where it started, then these become the learning objectives. So the objective is to teach the skills that are required, and then the trainers must decide how will the teaching take place. What's the most appropriate method? So the course is focused in on the required skills. Now it's a question of deciding how to teach those skills. A wide variety of techniques may be used. It may be a lecture situation. It may be a demonstration of a piece of machinery, or it may be a discussion amongst the employees about some issue. It can take various forms, but it's for the trainers to decide what is the most effective way of delivering the material. And the trainers should assess what they're doing to see if it's effective. And the assessments should challenge the learners and provide a basis for trainees to demonstrate the competencies necessary to do the required work. So at the end of the training period, the trainers should have some form of assessment, some form of feedback which suggests that they have met their objectives or they have not met their objectives, or perhaps they've only partially met their objectives. So it's important to assess the effectiveness of the training program. And one way to do that, of course, is to assess the people who attended the training program to see if they have now acquired the skills that were desired in the first place. So on this slide we've got quite a few points. We've got the trainers should decide what the trainees will learn, but that will be based on what the company requires if it's an in-house training program. They will decide what learning objectives will be taught, and the learning objectives should be focused on the requirements of the business, the requirements of the company, perhaps the requirements of a particular manager who wants his staff or her staff to have certain skills. Then point 3, the trainers should decide what will be taught. They should decide what are the essential points that must be put across in order for the attendees to acquire the skills that are required. So the trainers must decide on what will be taught, and then finally they should assess to see whether the program worked, and if in fact the attendees, the people who attended the course, have acquired the skills that were put forward. The design phase is an important stage. The trainer should develop a syllabus or a scheme of work detailing the structure and content to be taught. So the design phase is very important. It really determines the effectiveness of the training program. It must be well thought out. It can't just be haphazard and delivered. In other words, the trainer must really think about what is required and what is the best way of imparting that knowledge or passing on those particular sets of skills. So the process is called an instructional design phase, where the trainer develops documentation on the course design. So the trainer should document what is to be taught, what are the objectives, and how what will be taught, I should say, will target the requirements, the objectives. The taught material is what will be assessed at the end, and it's important that the outcomes from the training program are precise to what was required, and they've also been delivered in an efficient manner. So it's important for the trainer to work through what is required. Now, the following should be considered: the structure and arrangement of the content. So let's say it's a one-day course. The trainer should now decide how the day will be broken up, what's the structure, what will be taught in particular parts of the day, and how the material will be arranged, and what instructional method will be used. Will it be overheads, or will it be PowerPoint presentations, or videos, or discussions, or group work, or how will it be structured? The teaching method, the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, the ways of demonstrating the skills, or the ways of explaining it, and the way the teaching will take place in practice, that needs to be set out in the documentation. So it's not just deciding on which aspects of the objective will be taught at different times in the day. Perhaps in the morning time looking at the general principles, and in the just before lunch getting down to looking at more specifics about the business and the requirements of the business, and in the early afternoon applying this to fixing a particular problem, and mid-afternoon focusing in on exactly what is required, and then the assessment towards the end. That could be a possible structure. That will be decided in 1, as we've got on the slide here. In 2, how will this be done? As I said earlier, will it be PowerPoint slides or videos or whatever? The trainer must also decide on the types of activities that will be used, exercises and measuring accomplishments. So for example, it could be group tasks or problem-solving tasks, or it could be question and answers relating to a particular process to assess whether the attendees understand the process and understand the importance of the process and the background to the processes and so on. So there are different types of activities and exercises that may be built in to the whole program. Now let's look at the instructional design stage. Typically this involves 3 steps: planning an instructional design phase, consider an appropriate course format, and devise an instructional design document. So in the design stage we have really 3 parts, 3 big parts. One is planning the instructional strategy, second looking at the course format, and thirdly the instructional design document. Now the trainer should really have this in mind and should be prepared to document the activities that he or she has gone through in the designing the program under these 3 headings. Being innovative and bringing in new ideas about course structure and its delivery in order to achieve the learning objectives. Being innovative is highly desirable, but it is difficult. It depends on whether the trainer, him or herself, is up to date with the latest teaching methods and the latest thinking about program design and so on. So the trainer may require training, regular training, to ensure that he or she is up to speed with what is current practice and best practice. So being innovative sounds desirable, but it must be done by people who are competent and who know what the innovative practices are. Otherwise the whole activity could be a flop. It could be a disaster. When trainers develop instructional strategies, they need to draw on theoretical knowledge and practical experience so that learning content is effectively delivered to the learners. Often in business and management education, it's possible to come across articles and writings which suggest that theory is not that important. Well, it is important because it's important because the trainee needs to know the context. They need to know the relationships, and they need to know why those relationships are in place. So we carry with us all the time lots of theory. In our heads, we know the world through our experiences, which we have rationalized and thought about and conceptualized, and we link this to theories, and we understand the world by thinking. So it's important that in a training program there is a theoretical underpinning. It may not be high-level theory, it may not be profound theory, but the relationships should be clearly set out. And it's when the theory and the practice comes together that there is a more effective form of learning. It's the trainer's responsibility to choose the correct instructional strategy for the course and for the learners. The correct instructional strategy means knowing the balance between the theory and the practice, knowing how to divide the time period up into discrete parts, logical parts, which will run sequentially, which will lead the learner through the problem to a solution and to an understanding. So it's important that the trainers have a good grasp of what is required. They must be clear about the objectives. The objectives, perhaps, as I said earlier, set out by the company or by whoever's commissioned the training. So there are clear objectives, and the trainers must document how they are going to deliver the instructions, get the balance between theory and practice, structure the day or the time period. Perhaps it's a 1 month course or a 1 week course or a 1 day course every week or whatever it is. Structure the time period so that the learners, the attendees, are being taken logically and sequentially through the material to that greater understanding. Now, the course format, well, trainers are required to select an appropriate course delivery method. That almost goes without saying. It's important that the trainers look at various delivery methods and select the most appropriate. Various delivery methods may be to produce a booklet and discuss the booklet, or it could be to make videos and discuss the videos, or whatever the format is. It may be a blend of videos and written material and classes and workshops and discussion groups. It could be a blend of a lot of things, but it's getting that balance correct, getting the design right, getting the balance right, that's important. The right delivery method will allow for effective learning and a successful training program. If the learning method is not correct, then it's not going to be effective. Broadly speaking, it's a waste of time. The learning method should help the learners overcome the problems, overcome the conceptual problems, the understanding, overcome the skill gap. If it's a skill that's been taught, a practical skill, they must have a design which will take them through the learning process to acquire the skill and give them confidence and practice in performing the skill. If the delivery method is not correct, then the whole activity is broadly a waste of time. So the delivery format should enhance the learning experience. The learners hopefully are keen to learn, keen to acquire the new skill, or keen to learn the principles upon which a certain task is based, or whatever the objectives of the program are. So the delivery format should enhance this. It should make the whole activity enjoyable. It should make it that it can be done. It gives the learners confidence. It supports the learners. It promotes their engagement with the topic. It helps them along the way. There are different types of delivery formats. Looking at different ways the jobs can be divided up and the aids that are available. The aids could be support from other members of staff, the way management are involved with particular tasks, mechanization and automation. There are various ways job aids can come to help. There's also paper-based self-study. It could be that the trainer writes down the various functions and gives instructions how to overcome various problems and answers typical questions. It could be a paper-based study program so that the learners are given small booklets to read and to study. Or it could be e-learning or classroom interaction under trainer supervision and guidance. These are just a few of the types. There are others, and in your reading you'll come across different ways of delivering these programs. I've just picked a few here just as an example. Let's talk about the document. Well, the end process results in an instructional design document. The aim of the document is to provide an outline of the entire training program. So the document is important. The document sets out the objectives and it sets out what is required from the program. It sets out the resources that are required to deliver the program in terms of time and teaching resources, instructors and facilities. It also sets out the program itself in terms of how it's phased, the different learning objectives and how the various, if you like, sub-objectives are worked out over the time period. For example, looking at the theoretical background to the problem, looking at practical issues and looking at perhaps group work situations and acquiring skills, dividing the whole activity up. So the document will be a very detailed account of how the training program was organized. It provides detailed instructions on how to build and deliver the course content so that the trainers who are working on the course can go to the document and see exactly what it is that they need to do. Look at the phase they're at. They know what the students or the trainees or the attendees, whatever you wish to call them, they know what they have experienced up to that point. They know what has gone before and they know their task at the point in which they are involved. So they look at the document and they know that it's at this time, so therefore the following must be completed. So it gives structure to the whole program. It's a well thought out program. There's nothing haphazard about it. The document will provide the following sections. It'll outline the learning approach. So it'll explain why the particular learning approach is most appropriate. Why is there use of a video in this section? Why are the people organized into group discussion situations, and what are they discussing, and how should it be facilitated, or why are hands-on instruction guidance given in this particular time period. It'll set out the learning approach for each time slot. So the instructors are clear about what is required of them as well. Provide selection of appropriate media choices. It may be that a particular point can be delivered in several ways. It could be someone standing in front of a group explaining something to them, or it could be a video, or it could be something online, or it could be a written piece of material. But what is the most appropriate one for that situation? And really that requires looking at the whole program. If the previous sessions were somebody talking to the trainees and getting them to make notes of what was being said, perhaps they've had enough of that. Perhaps it's now time to have a break and have some practical discussion, or have a video session to look at something and to discuss the video at the end. It breaks up the monotony of the delivery process. So look at the appropriate media for each time period in each slot. Always state the learning objectives. It's important that the learning objectives are emphasized right throughout. So it may be possible that the overall learning objective of the course can be broken down into individual sections. So in one time period, the learning objective of that time period is to achieve a certain outcome. And that outcome will feed, together with other outcomes from other time periods, will feed into the overall learning outcome from the course, or of the course. So it's important to state the learning outcomes and the learning objectives as the course moves along. So describe course activities and exercises and assessments. So the document must include exercises, activities and assessments. It must be very clear, and the instructor who reads the document will have a very clear picture of what's required of him or her in the delivery of that particular part of the course. Now let's conclude. Well, the design stage is vital as it provides a blueprint for trainers. Without the design stage, the courses would be random. They would be haphazard. They would just be not thought out, not clear, and no particular structure. The learning outcomes would not be specified. The objectives of the whole exercise would not be specified. It's difficult to know the purpose of such an activity. So it's absolutely imperative that there is proper design for the course. It's an essential component. The stage provides an outline that identifies an effective training program. The design phase identifies an effective training program. The design stage is important because it gives focus to the whole activity. It takes the objectives, why the activity is taking place, and it attempts to meet the objectives. It designs in activities and delivery programs which will meet the objectives. It's designed. It is not casual. So the design stage is only a set of instructions or guidance for trainers to follow. So it's important that the trainers are the ones who can use the design stage and can understand the design stage and use the document appropriately. And as I said much earlier, it may be important that the trainers themselves are trained in doing this, and the discipline required to do it is clearly understood by the trainers, so that they will adhere to what's in the document and they will follow the document. So that's the design stage in the ADDIE model. It's a crucial stage, it's an absolutely vital stage. in the design of any training program. Training programs cannot just happen, they must be designed. And these are some of the issues that should be looked into in the design phase. But that concludes all I'm going to do in this session, so I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.